axle replacement on a Honda, and this should be pretty much the same for all of them. Or either going to be using a 36mm or 32mm axle nut. We used a big breaker bar here. Ours was pretty loose, and it was also unpeened. Sometimes you have to peel this piece out here because it's in there so it doesn't back out. Oh, can't actually believe this, but I pulled it up in here, and if you look, the fucking control arm bolt is backed out and it's hitting my axle. Crazy. Seriously, that is crazy. Alright guys, so already got all that stuff, like I said, off. Get the axle nut loose. Now we're gonna go ahead and drop the upper control arm bolts and the strut mount, the strut tower bolts. And as you can see there, my axle is definitely bad, and I'll be dealing with this crazy fucking bolt here I just found. Guys, so strut bolts removed, and the washers that came with this strut, the upper control arms and the bolts are removed. Pulling them out of the body here, you can see the bolts removed, axle nuts removed. Alright, got that out of the way. Be careful for your brake line. We're taking the tie rod out, guys, because I think it's going to be a problem. Alright guys, so the tie rod's out. The strut we removed entirely. We ended up taking that out. There was a 12mm for the strut. You had to push down on the hub to get the strut out from up here and to clear the fender. Pry against the hard portion of the axle here. Don't just yank on the boot, guys. You're just going to rip it and separate them. Alright, got the pry bar here ready. We're just raising it a little bit more so I can actually fit it under here. Alright guys, so it is going to leak. You can see that here. We're going to try to go as high as we can up here, tilting the car at as much of an angle as we can to avoid losing as much fluid as we possibly can. But it is a good thing to have a drain pan. So you guys, so go ahead and get your axle ready so that when you pull this one out and make a mess, you're not leaking out all the fluid that you have. Sweet guys, so went ahead and cleaned up all the debris from the torn boot. You can see it's leaking. Fixed my control arm bolt here that backed out for some odd reason. Went ahead and put some lubrication of a sort, oil or transmission fluid onto the axle spline there so it goes in a little bit easier. As you can see here, there's a gap between this. This is the clip that keeps the axle and the transmission holding it up. Sweet guys, so I just had my buddy hold it up while I beat the end here with a rubber mallet. And it looks like it's all the way seated. We're gonna give it a couple more taps just to be sure. So it's very, very important that you seat this, guys. If you don't do this right, the axle is going to come out and it can cause all kinds of problems and damage to even your transmission. It should kind of push itself in as you start to assemble the rest of the suspension, guys. So this is how I get my struts on here. Watch your boot. Get it up in there. Try to get these lines up here aligned. So I went ahead and pushed the upper control arm in first and then put the strut in just to make it a little bit easier because it does hit, and you, like I said, you want to watch your brake line. You can see I did rub against it here. So yep, there you go, your axle pushes itself through as you assemble suspension. I'm just going to go ahead and get my strut bolts in here and get everything tightened up. Pretty much done. Go ahead and put the wheel on, set the car on the ground so we can torque the axle nut down. Here's all the tools we used for this job. And we went ahead and double checked all of our bolts to make sure everything was tightened properly to avoid a repeat of backed out control arm bolt. Thanks for watching, guys.